This is Rob Patry from Rob Patry Live. Good evening. It is a beautiful, beautiful July day here in St. Andrews. In the studio, we just hit 145 degrees. I think that's Celsius. I'm not even sure. Boy, we got a full table tonight. This is different. We've added an extra special guest. Now you're going to have to decide which of the three is a special guest. Okay, so here they are, the dream team. We've got Brad Henderson, the Deputy Mayor of St. Andrews. We've got Karen Ludwig, MP for around here, and Minister of Tourism, John Ames, MLA. He's got a whole bunch of titles. What else have you got?
MLA for St. Croix.
Yeah, okay.
And a friend of Rob Patry.
And a friend of Rob Patry. Well, good evening and welcome to everybody. Thank you for showing. What did I say around? That was terrible. What did I say?
MP for New Brunswick Southwest.
You know what it is? It's the heat. The heat tends to shrink my brain.
I get it.
And it's even smaller than usual. So how is everybody?
Great.
Everybody's good? Staying out of trouble? Enjoying the summer? Good. Okay, so the purpose of tonight's show and why you're here is to celebrate the USA Today choice of the #1 destination in Canada, St. Andrews by the Sea. So I'm going to congratulate all three of you. I don't know if I should, but I will. Feel free to speak.
Yeah, no,
this isn't a monologue.
You definitely should congratulate all three. I can speak just from a town perspective that obviously as a municipality and as a Chamber of Commerce, we're actively involved in this, but it was actually all three levels of government that assisted in this campaign. If I look to my opposite left here, Minister Ames sent a message out to all of his staff to encourage them to personally vote for St. Andrews as well. You guys reached out to the Premier's Twitter account and Facebook, and he made a post encouraging New Brunswickers to support St. Andrews. So from the get-go, you were involved, and then to my left, MP of Southwest New Brunswick, Karen Ludwig.
That's around here, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Okay, well,
but herself, she actually she encouraged the Atlantic Caucus to get involved, but in particular, she took the time to make a video for social media at the Blockhouse.
Yes.
That I don't know how many views it's up to now, but last time I checked, it was up to something like 65,000.
It was a great video.
So if you look at ways to get out there and tell the word and encourage people to vote, and they are representative of the people, both of the individuals beside me have done a fantastic job helping St. Andrews out.
Okay, so my first question, and anybody can answer, is how did this all start? Like, who contacted who, and how were we made aware that we were even chosen?
I can say that I first heard about it through Mayor McCachran
Okay.
in St. Stephen.
Okay.
And we were at an event, and that's when he had mentioned it. I hadn't heard of it before. And so we, a number of us got onto it pretty quickly. But certainly, I think it speaks volumes to communities reaching out and seeing that this isn't a St. Andrews designation. This is certainly a New Brunswick-wide opportunity. If St. Andrews is the only destination that had been selected, it brings opportunities for all of New Brunswick.
And I have to jump in here. Brad was instrumental in getting the message out to people surrounding St. Andrews and the entire Southwest region in terms of his capacity with all the work he does with Kingsbury Garden, because, with the Chamber of Commerce, Brad can speak more on this, but it's a big network, and when one gets a success, the entirety gets a success. Mm-hmm. And the goal for the entire region, the town itself, is to flourish together. And I'd like to give a lot of kudos to Brad for getting that message out there. And I'm sure that Al, I heard from Al as well from the beginning stages, but I'm sure Al probably heard it from some of the posts or from our marketing genius over here, Brad.
No, to be completely honest, it was Mayor McCachran that alerted me. So he heard it on the radio, and he sent me a text, and I'm pretty actively involved in the community between the chamber and the town, and a lot of things that happen in town I usually hear early. I had no idea what he was talking about, so I kind of that night just said I'll follow back up with you, and the next morning I was Googling trying to figure out what he was talking about, and then I found exactly what he was talking about with this USA Today. He didn't know the name of it at the time,
right.
But he was like, Brad, let me know how we can win. I want to help. And what's odd enough is the second person to message me personally was at the CAO of St. Stephen, Derek O'Brien. He asked how can he help. So they instantly bought in, and they've been one of our biggest ambassadors, helping us. The whole region obviously had to contribute to give this to us, as well as our visitors and the province of New Brunswick. But I would say if you had someone in our corner the most, the town of St. Stephen was actively involved just as much as the town of St. Andrews to make this possible.
And I know that Alan McEachern is an avid fan of Rob Patry Live, so if you're watching, Alan, you can give us a call at 1-855-529-8826 and explain to us exactly how you found out about this, because we want to know. Now, I'm also curious, did USA Today contact anybody from St. Andrews, or have they contacted anybody?
Not that I'm aware of. So the connection to St. Andrews and USA Today is there's a travel writer. Her name is Jody Robbins, and she visited St. Andrews, I believe 2 years ago. I had the opportunity to take her around the garden, and she went through a number of different attractions, and she fell in love with the area. And she's been both in print and as well as television across the United States, but also across Canada with different capacities, getting national articles done on our community. And then she just published a book called 25 communities in Canada that every family must visit. And she recognized St. Andrews in the book. So when I looked at the panel, I instantly recognized her name, and I reached out to her, and she was indeed, they were all familiar with St. Andrews, but I really think that Jody was the one in particular that was really pushing the agenda for our town.
So you have been in touch with her?
Constantly throughout it. Once I got alerted, she was the one that made us aware of what's called a Twitter party.
Yes.
So USA Today actually had an hour, I believe it was on a Tuesday from like 6 to 7, where they were just talking about the best destinations in Canada. So she was the one that actually tipped me off to let me know that was going on. And what was kind of unique about that opportunity is pretty much every destination had a tourism board that was involved with it. But for our Twitter party, we not only had our own chamber Twitter, which is Visit St. Andrews, the province was on there as well, Tourism New Brunswick, helping us tweet. And then as well, we had businesses like Kingsbrae and the Algonquin that were all on there tweeting. And we actually, if you look at a ratio of kind of that little hour spotlight, we got well over our fair share of recognition during it because of all the different organizations versus just one tweeting.
And I think that that's, paramount in this whole voting process was that people were so aware of it. And the community really pulled together. In your repetitive Facebook, and then people would share it to say, look, vote. You can vote as many times as you want, once a day, but still, every day vote. My wife and I voted.
From multiple devices.
Yeah. So, I mean, we all voted. We kept voting. And it seemed like we're getting closer and closer. And it was sort of a great way to pull the community together. Well, and not just St. Andrews, but all of Charlotte County.
The other thing I want just to add to that too, Rob, is really the power of social media itself.
Yeah.
If we look at tourism or the town of St. Andrews, the province of New Brunswick, the Canada as a whole, social media is a critical part of that, and it's free.
Yeah.
I think it's the consumer, it's the average person that's out there sharing that message.
Yes.
And they were actively involved. And if we look at all types of social media, certainly Facebook and Twitter were definitely the number one a means to communicate, and it just flew around.
Yeah. Well, and this is how I advertise the show. I'm on Facebook constantly promoting the show, massaging those posts, working, and still nobody watches, and I don't know why. It's a personal thing.
I would argue that. I heard you're the #1 live show in Charlotte County.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm glad to hear that.
The #1 community cable channel.
We have to have people, we have to do a new vote. Now that all of this St. Andrews stuff has settled down, we need a new focus, and that should be me.
Well, you can argue that you might be one of the reasons why it was put on the list in the first place.
It could, yes, thank you.
I
appreciate that.
There's a lot of contributing factors, and hey, who knows, maybe you're a big part of that.
I'd like to think that I am.
I'll add on to that, actually, is Rob reached out to me instantly and asked if I'd be willing, especially the last night of the competition, to come on and remind people to vote. So he He definitely was actively involved. Vote CHCO. You got a hashtag trending there.
I do.
Okay, now I don't know anything about these hashtags. In fact, that used to be a pound key on a phone at one time, as far as I know, or the number sign.
Oh, Rob,
so
old
I
man.
know I'm behind. You know what? I'm just into this whole new technology. It's all very mystical to me. But what does this do for me? You just write it down, and now people are going to start watching the show.
Well, they start sharing it.
Yeah.
And when that gets to Twitter, the more common that handle is, the more it gets picked up, similar to hashtag #MBProud.
Okay.
Or Explore MB.
Yep.
Now, could we put vote Rob Patry instead of CHCO? Because really, that's all I'm concerned about.
Okay.
What are we
We could
voting
do
for?
more.
Best show or best looking
Oh, well,
guy
thank
in
you.
Canada? Or?
Thank you. That's a given. So now the three of you have been extremely busy since I've seen all three of you lately. Well, you I haven't. I haven't seen you since show number 1, the infamous show number 1.
And I have to tell you, congratulations, the show's still going on.
We're still here, in spite of you,
Yeah, I
or in
know,
spite
I
of
know,
myself. No, you did well. It was, in fact, as Brad pointed out, it was our pilot show,
Yeah.
and we weren't sure if we were going to get a contract for another few shows or a year. We did get one for a full year, and I owe it all to you.
Well, that's why I stayed away for so long. I wanted to make sure that everything was good to go.
Everything is
The training wheels are off. You're flying now.
But since I've seen the three of you, and Karen, this was a couple of weeks ago, you've been busy. For example, you met with somebody very famous that you know. Well, you didn't meet with him, but he was up in, where was that? An ice cream show or something.
That's right. So the last time I was on the show, you had asked me, wouldn't it be great if I could have an interview with Prime Minister Trudeau?
Yes.
I said, but I couldn't tell you that was only days away because he was coming into our area again, into our riding,
Right.
For an ice cream social in Grand Bay, Westfield.
Okay, now I have to ask, did you ask him if he's going to come on the show?
I said hashtag.
Oh, you did?
Rob
Okay.
Patry.
Okay, so then you've been supporting me.
I have been. You know, I will say about the Prime Minister's visit to Grand Bay or the Prime Minister's visit here to St. Andrews.
Yeah.
Those are, in their own right, are actually economic development drivers. Because as I said to Mayor Lozier in Grand Bay, I mean, we couldn't announce it until 24 hours before his visit. But I said, please be sure to have your Facebook page up to date, your website up to date, because people are going to say, you know, where is Grand Bay Westfield?
Right.
Not only Canadians, but people, you know, around the world, because so many follow the Prime Minister and where he is. So even after he was here in St. Andrews, I still hear people talk about St. Andrews in relation to the Prime Minister's visit.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And how many people showed up to that?
1,200.
Wow. How many people are in Grand Bay?
5,000.
Okay, so a good part of the community, but I suspect they came from other parts too.
Yeah, they came from all parts. There were actually people that came from Nova Scotia when they heard about it.
Oh, great.
There was a lady that she was in her 80s.
Yes.
Her daughter worked at the River Centre, and she phoned her mother and said, Mom, Prime Minister Trudeau was coming to Grand Bay. So her mother had her son drive her all the way from Nova Scotia in, and she did actually meet with the Prime Minister.
Oh, isn't that
one-on-one, yeah.
wonderful?
Yeah.
He's a very charismatic young man, isn't he?
He is, and it was interesting. The number of kids, really young ones, that knew the name of their Prime Minister, and they were not taking no when it came for the picture. They were adamant for a picture. In fact, at one point, one of the security details had to stop, and she said, "Listen, kids." But when she went to say, "Listen, kids," they were scooting between her legs and all around, and they were in there. So it was good.
That's
It was exciting,
great.
yeah.
Okay, now John, what have you been doing of late? Because I haven't seen you in a while. The last time I saw you, I think it was winter time. And we were just talking about Canada 150.
Last I remember, we may have had dinner together.
Well, we did.
In St. Andrews.
We did. Have we got a call? I heard some talking there. No, that was nothing.
Well, we've had a very busy year, of course, in tourism. We're shaping up to probably have the best year in 10 or 15 years here in New Brunswick, and a lot of that we're seeing right here on the ground here in St. Andrews. And places like Kingsbury Garden, Huntsman Marine, Sunbury Shores, to name just a few, are prime examples of the attractions that bring people here in the first place. But you know, the entire region, as we spoke about, is to the benefit to such designations as the USA Today top 10 destinations in Canada for St. Andrews. And you hear people talking about it. Karen and I were just on a train last weekend in Macadam. There's people from all over the province down to be on that train ride, and a lot of them that I spoke to and I told them what I did and who I represented, they all brought up the designation about St. Andrews. Today, as a matter of fact, was the debut of the Railway Pie. So if anyone has a chance, any Sunday from now until September, you head on up to Macadam for Railway Pie, because it's quite a treat.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of things going on. Yesterday, we had the launch of a canoe run from St. Stephen down to the Ganong Nature Park.
This was the O Canada. Was it?
It's part of the Heritage Rivers.
Okay.
And it was really great to see, because it is one of the most famous rivers in the continent, the St. Croix River. And if anyone has a chance to explore it by canoe, kayak, or motorboat or anything else, it's just a spectacular opportunity to get on and really see where our forefathers came from. I mean, St. Croix Island itself, this is the very first settlement of Europeans in Canada. Not a lot of people realize that. It's the second in the continent. It's the number one in Canada, and it's just between St. Andrews and St. Stephen. So that symbiotic nature that specifically St. Andrews and St. Stephen have, a lot of it results in the river and the watershed system. I mean, and that's one of the mindsets I had when I unified the riding and calling it St. Croix.
Right.
Because it encompasses the entire area from Macadam, St. Stephen, St. Andrews to Campobello and all parts in between. And we all have a lot in common. We have a lot to gain by working together. And you're starting to see a lot of that in recent years. And when people work together, they get results. And you can just see those results.
Things come to fruition. Yeah. It's interesting driving up here to St. Andrews from St. Stephen. You mentioned St. Croix Island. I can't help but look at it every time. I mean, it's just something, it's on my peripheral, and you're driving by and you need to look at it, because it's such an important part, as you say, of our local heritage, but historically in Canada, and as I've mentioned to other people too, even the states in a way, because I always say that I'm going to write something someday, and I will. The connection, I think, between St. Croix Island and New Orleans, I think would be an interesting path to follow, because of and it's, even though it's a little tiny speck of an island, it's so important.
Well, and I think that's why it's important to have these designations, such as the USA Today Top 10, because this is a newspaper that people will read throughout the United States, and it'll prompt them to say, I've been up that way before. Next time I want to make sure we spend some time in that region, in St. Andrews by the Sea, or other places in New Brunswick, other places in Canada. For those that don't know, right now, Canada is pegged as the #1 tourist destination in the world by Lonely Planet and by a lot of other tourism travel writers. And having a subscription such as USA Today, who's probably got roughly 3 million person readership between online and print, it's the largest in the entire country, in all of the United States, USA Today. So for a subscription or a newspaper such as USA Today, that's going to be in the vast majority of hotels across the United States, especially in the Northeast, where we get a lot of our traffic here in New Brunswick and throughout Atlantic Canada. That's very important. If people see that, it'll be a connection for them. It'll register with them if they're planning a trip up to, let's say, Bar Harbor. If they're planning a trip to, let's say, I don't know, Nova Scotia or Newfoundland, they'll say, well, let's stop there. That's the #1 destination in Canada. That'll go a long ways for people, and I think that's important for, like I said, not only our region and St. Andrews itself, but for New Brunswick and our entire country. There's a lot at stake, and it's really good to see.
Well, and one of the things, and you and I spoke about this last time, Brad, is that there is so much to do in this very small town. So people aren't coming here, they're not in Manhattan, they're not in Toronto, Vancouver, they're not in a big city. They can still enjoy sort of a relaxed feel in a small town, but there's Kingsbury Garden, there's the Huntsman, there's Minister's Island. There's lots of really fine restaurants and music and the river, and there's just, Passamaquoddy Bay, there's so much to do, museums. So it's a great place to come, relax, not feel that, geez, I'm coming from one big city to another big city, still see a lot of historical things, have fine, great dining, and enjoy just a fantastic vacation.
You're 100% right, and I know that maybe us winning best destination might have surprised a few people if you look at the competition we were against. If you look at a voting thing, obviously with populations, that jumps out at you right away that we're at a disadvantage. But if you look at the actual quality of the product, I would argue that St. Andrews has been just as great a destination as all of them. The only difference is maybe we haven't done as a community a good enough job telling our story. And one thing that came out from all of this is we've got a lot of people in town that are very proud to be from St. Andrews. They're proud to be from Charlotte County and New Brunswick. And it seems like more and more as a community, we're rallying together. And you look at St. Stephen, you look at the whole region. It seems like what we've learned is winning USA Today's competition is kind of phase one of a three-phase thing. The first one is obviously to win it. The second phase is we have to tell our own story. USA Today will tell our story, but as a community, we have to find a way to continue to use this credential behind our names to tell our story out in public. And then the third phase, I would say, is to live up to it. And I think that we have the products like you speak of to compete against. If you look at the locations like Banff, Jasper, I've been to them. They're beautiful. There's a charm to them. They're surrounded by the mountains. Well, there's charm in St. Andrews. The only difference is we're surrounded by the ocean. And I look at all the positive activity that's happening just in the Charlotte County region, and a lot of it has to do with some of the great announcements that we're hearing in the community that both of you are making. It's making a difference. It's a great time to be in Charlotte County.
It is. Okay, we're going to take a quick break now on Rob Patry Live, and we'll be right back with Brad Henderson, Karen Ludwig, and Mr. John Ames. Okay, so we're back on Rob Patry Live. You know what I find difficult is we're sitting here and Brad Henderson is at the desk at the other end, and all he's been doing is complaining about the heat. Now, we all know it's hot in here, and Mr. Ames and MP Karen Ludwig are behaving themselves. They've got water, yes. And here's Brad saying, the first thing he says when the camera goes off is, man, is it hot in here? And I feel like saying, duh, I know it is. It's like an oven.
You have one of your staff waving a fan at you right now.
Well, I know. That's true. And I did have somebody buff me down with a little bit of talcum powder. But you know what? I'm a celebrity. I'm a star.
That's true.
These are certain...
the names behind us.
Well, exactly. Yeah. You know what? It comes at a price, but there are things worth seeing. Okay, so here we've got... And when we had Karen on a couple of weeks ago, this was delivered to my house. This is a Karen Ludwig newsletter. Is that what we call it?
It is.
A newsletter, a beautiful piece, and it's got a lot of information about things going on and pictures. Actually, really a beautiful marketing piece. And there was Lyme disease talked about, which we talked a lot about last time, and trade opportunities and that type of thing. But let's talk a little bit first about what we've got right here, which is Canada 150. And I know that it did happen, did it not? Was it a day or is it the whole year?
Really, it's been the whole year.
Right.
But certainly, in terms of the bulk of the investment for activities, it would have been around July 1st.
Right.
And it certainly was an opportunity for so many communities and Canadians across the country to celebrate the country that they so cherish, but also the legacy.
Yes.
Looking at where we've been, in terms of rediscovering, in many cases, Canada's history, such as the example Minister Ames gave about St. Croix Island, and also where do we want to be in 150 years. I know what we did, my husband had contacted the St. Stephen High School and asked if they could actually make a float. So the St. Stephen High School wood shop and art students actually made a 16-foot replica of the Centre Block Parliament building. So we actually brought Parliament to New Brunswick Southwest.
You know, I'm going to interrupt here, and I always interrupt because it's my show, like I tell everybody, but it's true, it is. And, you know, this type of thing, like kids at the St. Stephen High School building a float, if this isn't happening, I don't think, in big major cities, and maybe it is, but there's this wonderful thing that happens in a small community like this where people pull together. And, you know, and I think also that's one of the reasons that St. Andrews was picked. You know, I don't think you'll be seeing that in Vancouver and Quebec and maybe some other destinations. It's sort of this, can I say, esprit de corps that the community pulling together and doing something like that for you is incredible.
It is incredible, but I also think it speaks so well to so many small communities in New Brunswick that do pull together, but also that adds to the quality of life.
Yes.
That you have, you know, young people that really do want to be part of something in terms of history, and that the school was able to accommodate us and actually build it into part of the credit. But I think that's just one more of the drawing features to New Brunswick. It's if we can get people here the first time, they're definitely coming back for the second, third, fourth, and maybe they'll move here.
Yeah. I know somebody that did, me.
Yeah.
Because you know what? You're living history every day. You walk by the buildings, the houses, you look at the island, you look at the river, the ground, and I don't know if I'm different than other people, maybe I am a little bit, but you stop and you think about all the things that have happened here, and it's astounding, you know, and you can sense it. You can sense it in the air, in the soil, that there's so much history around here. And I mean, come to St. Andrews and the buildings and knowing that some of them were, you know, from across the river and the Loyalists brought them over. Those are fascinating pieces of information, references that other people talk about in books. We live it here.
I was just going to say, the thing I also want to pull out is if we look at the blockhouse, just a reminder that we did win the War of 1812.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
And I think that's another part of rediscovering history, because if we had not won the War of 1812, we would have been electing someone very different than who we elected.
Well,
we would have been
true.
part of the United States.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't be celebrating Canada 150.
That's right.
We would have been
We could have,
celebrating.
in a different way, we would have been celebrating it for our Canadian neighbors.
Geez, you know what? That would be an interesting book to write about what if. Or not. John, you don't seem to believe it. You know,
Well, you write it. You write it. I'll be the first one to buy the book. How's that?
Okay.
I do believe Canada 150 is a great opportunity for people to, like MP Ludwig suggested, rediscover where we came from. But we need to always celebrate our heritage and learn from our history, because that's where we get to have that sense of pride. Instilling a sense of pride in the next generation is crucial, because if we don't know where we came from, then it's going to be difficult to establish success in current form in today, and it's certainly to establish further success in the future. And Canada 150 is just an opportunity for everyone to come together and celebrate not just our successes and our triumphs, but our what we've had to overcome. There's been lots of times where we've had challenges and difficulties, not just locally, but provincially, regionally, throughout the whole nation. But we've overcome those. We're a resilient people here up in the north. And it's not just because of our colder climate. And the fact that we're complaining about the heat should suggest that, you know, we do like to complain as Canadians. We're a lot like our American neighbors. But it's okay to complain as long as we remember how great of a place we have here in our country. We have the greatest country in the world, and we have the greatest province in the country, and I believe the greatest region in the province.
Yeah.
And we can't lose sight of that. And we need to continue to pass that on to our friends, our family, our neighbors, and certainly to our next generation, so that they can not only rediscover where they came from and flourish, but also add to our story. And you know, every single day I get reminded of that with all the discoveries that people have locally on celebrating, whether it be a new business or whether it be you know, a new foundation being created or being you know, being resurfaced. There's different things that it's beyond bricks and mortar too. There's volunteer groups that are banding together to help out people who are in need. There are people from all over the county coming together to do what's the right thing. And that's something that's extremely special, I think, for our neck of the woods, and I think it's something that we shouldn't take lightly, because it's success stories like that will continue to shape and mold where we are today in the future for our next generation. So,
yeah, and you know, I think it's very important for the people of Charlotte County to tell their story, even to each other and amongst us, over and over again, to not forget. We're going to be involved very soon with the Chocolate Museum in St. Stephen, interviewing 20 people from the St. Stephen area about the historical aspects of St. Stephen and videotaping that, because you know, that's the type of thing where if you don't talk about it, it's forgotten. And in New Brunswick, which I've noticed, history, again, and I'm repeating myself, but is such an integral part of our fabric that it must be told again and again and again. And we must be all aware of it, and we must become extremely proud of it, not shy and say, well, you know, okay, so we've got, you know, the first island that was inhabited by Europeans. Well, okay, there it is. We've got to really boast. And that one of the things I wrote about this particular show was it's not only to congratulate ourselves, but to say, give ourselves all a pat on the back and say, you know what, this is really a big deal for us. USA Today picking us should, you know, motivate us and cause us to say, this is a great thing. Let's all celebrate it and congratulate ourselves.
And that's why it ties in so well with the conversation on Canada 150, because we've, as a country, with Canada 150, we're doing a great job of encouraging people to come and discover Canada. But to have, if you're in the United States, you're hearing about Canada 150 and you're making plans, and you're hearing that a credible news source like that is saying, this is the spot you want to go. And if you look at the way that our dollar is unfortunately and fortunately underperforming, if you're on vacation, not a good thing. But if you want people, you're a tourist attraction or a tourist-driven seaside community like St. Andrews is, it's nothing but an opportunity. So Canada 150, it is a time to reflect, it's a time to appreciate, but it certainly is also an opportunity as a community to grow. And I think that we're doing currently right now a good job. If you look at July 1st weekend, we've always had a great July 1st weekend in St. Andrews. If you look at the places to go in the province, it's always right up there with the major cities as a place that you want to be to celebrate it. And then they this year they had Luke McDonald on July 2nd do a free outdoor concert, which he's the guy behind Paddle Fest. So there's a lot of people that stuck around for July 2nd, and then at July 3rd, putting my Kingsbury hat on, we had a Canada 150 special concert that had the New Brunswick Youth Orchestra in town, a Juno Award-winning Misha Brugger-Gossman vocalist in, and a 120-voice choir. And it was quite not just a celebration day, it truly was a celebration weekend to mark Canada 150 in St. Andrews. And on that note, I wanted to say thank you to both our MLA and our MP for both attending pretty much all of the events that went on in our community. We saw you the whole weekend, from the parade to the concert. You guys actually made a decision, and I know you did move around your riding, but you guys spent a lot of time in our community because this is a place to celebrate Canada 150.
Now, I must apologize. You didn't see me, but I do have an excuse. I was getting some liposuction. So, you know, at least I have a solid reason.
You're an honest shooter, too.
Well, yeah, and you have to be, you know. You have to be, because I can only wear this girdle for so long. But this is, you know, again, this incredible sense of pride. And I guess because, in a way, because of the weather on the 1st, we got an extra day, an extra Canada 150 day, didn't we?
We did, yeah. The fireworks were originally scheduled for July 1st,
Yeah.
and they fired them off July 2nd. It was amazing to see, even in the I would call it poor weather that morning. It was raining and everything like that. It was very foggy. The downtown was packed. So even with, it was a beautiful kind of July 1st, I wonder how many people would have been in town that day.
Right.
It might have been actually to the point where it was concerning, but those are good concerns, that more and more people want to celebrate here. And yeah, you are right. It ended up being a good thing because it wasn't a one-day celebration, it was a 3-day celebration.
Yeah, yeah.
The community breakfast in St. George was a combination between St. George and Blacks, and it was a full house as well. And at the Kingsbury Gardens at 11 o'clock, there was the memorial for Afghan Memorial. And even though it was pouring rain, we had our umbrellas, that was also well done. And then also the planting of the Vimy Oak. So
yeah, from the Vimy Ridge. So we were able to get off the acorns a Vimy Ridge oak that we planted. And just on a planting side, we only put 50 chairs out thinking in the rain. That's all we'd get.
Yeah.
Luckily, we had some around back, and there ended up being a couple hundred people in the rain to sit out there to pay respect to people that have paid the ultimate sacrifice for the very country that we're celebrating.
And again, you know, boasting about our you know, community and the people that live here, but I don't think you're going to get that everywhere. You know, where that type of passion for the people in the community that live here, and that you're going to get 200 people in the pouring rain to honor something that occurred 60, 70 years ago.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to one of the reasons why we were fortunate enough to win the competition. So we have a population base here, it's under 1,900, and there is so many people in our community that consistently raise their hand and consistently care about their community. If you look at a lot of the people that sat in the rain, they were the people in the heat today that were handing out water to people that were completing the triathlon today.
Right.
So we're very fortunate for a small community, having so many people that are passionately involved in the community. And if you look at those communities that we were competing for in the top 10, with populations of 200,000, 300,000, a lot of those people voted once and they were done. But what the difference in the competition was, is as we talked about, is people are so proud to be from this region that they consistently not only vote it, they consistently post it and reminded their friends to vote over and over again. And that's the reason we won, not because we necessarily had the most different people. It's probably because a good percentage of our community just know that we've got such a great community, and they're not afraid to showcase it.
Right. Okay, well, we're going to take another quick break. And again, if anybody wants to call in and has, or have, is it has or have? Has it have a question? Has a question.
Has.
Have. Is it has? I don't know. Well, you
Has.
know what? We'll look that up on Google after. It's either has. If anybody has a question, they can call us in at 1-855-529-8826. We're going to take a quick break on Rob Patry Live. We'll be back with Brad Henderson, Karen Ludwig, and John Ames. All right, so we're back on Rob Patry Live. Thank you, Brad, for not mentioning how hot it is in here, although you're looking a little shiny there. We need to get you some damp towels or something.
I did the triathlon right before I got here.
Yeah. Oh, you should have asked those people that you said that were giving out water to come up here and give us water. But anyway, that's well, they probably wouldn't do that. All right, now Karen was saying I'm not giving her. As soon as the camera's off, she says, Rob, you're not giving me enough time. I can't get a word in edgewise with these two. And I apologize. But I did give you a whole week, a whole hour show. I even said to you could be on for 24 hours if you wanted to.
You were very generous.
Yeah. So now we're going to make these two not say anything, and you're going to have the table because you want to talk about tourism and economic development. So you got 10 minutes, go for it.
Thank you. Don't fall asleep, people out there. I just wanted to just really highlight the significance of tourism. As you know, we have what's called an Atlantic Growth Strategy, where 4 Atlantic premiers have signed on with the federal government, and we're promoting trade, we're promoting tourism, we're all aspects of economic development. But certainly looking at tourism, there's within each province in the east, one person's been I was appointed as the federal representative to work as well with my provincial colleague here, and tourism is a huge economic development driver to so many communities, and it pushes it in all different directions, and I think that's an important part that we really need to be focusing on regarding tourism, whether it's just even looking at St. Andrews, what that can do to other communities. So when someone's coming up from, let's say if we're looking at the United States, or someone's coming from another part of Canada, there are other communities that they'll be touching upon. So we want everyone to be working on thriving communities and gaining from this opportunity, whether it's, if we look at the little village of Macadam, in some communities right now are experiencing a downward turn in population growth. Macadam is one that's on the upswing. They've had more homes sold in the last couple of months than they've
Wonderful.
had in a significant amount of time. So I think that's an important discussion here as well, to talk about economic development and what that will mean to us as not only as a province, but certainly as a region.
And why do you think that is? That there was a turnaround in Macadam?
I think a number of things. One, I think they've done some really good marketing. They have a number of homes that are very, very affordable. And we also are now starting to see nationally young people that had moved out west at one point, for what they thought were greater prospects in terms of salary and opportunities. We're starting to see them move back. If we look at the cost of childcare, so many places in west of here, childcare is anywhere between, not so much in Quebec, but Ontario and west, childcare can be anywhere between $30,000 to $40,000 per child. And also so many young people are saying, well, I had this great job, but 1, I couldn't afford childcare, and 2, I couldn't afford to buy a home.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing that opportunity coming back, and the more people hear about St. Andrews or St. George or St. Stephen, Grand Bay or Hanwell, they're what is it like to live in the East? And I think that was a big part of the social media campaign, is beyond the 1,800 people that voted over and over and over again, it was so many other people that had touched the area that said, this is a fantastic area. This is a place you definitely need to come visit, experience, and live.
And I like what you said about what's it like to live in the East. And it is a different lifestyle. The people are different, the communities, the thought process, everything is different. In the United States, people tend to move around. People live in New York, and then they go to Chicago, or they go to California, or they go out to the Midwest, and they go to Florida, and they tend to move around. It seems here people stay in Ontario, or they stay in Quebec, and they don't, not just from a tourism perspective, but they don't get an opportunity to live in another part of Canada. And I think that I'm very grateful that we moved out here, because it is different, and in a very good way, and it makes you sort of see Canada in a much different light. I think a lot of Canadians see where they're from, the province or the town where they're from, that's Canada. That's it for me.
But don't you find, Rob, if you look at a community like St. Andrews, so many people here were not born in St. Andrews. It's someone that came in for a visit. Maybe they came here to the community college. They took the course at the Huntsman Marine Science Center that I'm sure you'd like to talk about shortly.
I will.
Maybe they came here for a vacation. They came here to work at the hotel when it was, the original, there's the Fairmont and CP chain. That touch point really has an eclectic group of people that are living in this community, and so many other ones in this, and certainly in southwestern New Brunswick.
Because it's a great way to live. It's different, it's unique, and it's unlike what I've experienced. And in the short time that we've been here, it's really, I think, made a great impact on us in a very positive way.
Well, we're glad to have you here.
Well, thank you.
Number one. Number two, there is a lot of people moving here from Ontario and other places in the world, let alone Canada. And I think it's more than just the natural beauty that we have here. It's the people. It's the cost of living. I mean, you live in downtown Toronto and you're ready to retire, you can sell your home and buy one for the fraction of the cost, which would be just as nice back here, and retire on the rest. So I mean, people that know about that have taken advantage of that, and I think I've been pleasantly surprised at the shift and the change of lifestyle in a positive way. You're not going to have the same type of opportunities in terms of nightlife, like downtown shopping like you'd have in Times Square or Toronto, but that's okay because that's not what everybody always wants.
You're right.
And we're close enough to major centers that if someone does want a piece of that every once in a while, then we can get that. And that's why I think St. Stephen, for example, they coined their phrase, the middle of everywhere, for great reason, because they're in the middle of a lot of major areas where at the same time they have a lot to offer amongst the beautiful region we have here. But tourism itself, I think, is an economic driver. It also helps instill a sense of wanting to come back and maybe either get a vacation home for a summer or even live here when they retire. But itself, tourism is very important to the economy of New Brunswick, and our government recognizes that. We for every dollar that we invest in this sector, we get a yield of $3.19 back. So we recognize that, and I'm proud to say that my department's received the biggest increases seen in modern history. So that's important. That doesn't mean that it's limitless, but it's refreshing to know that my department in this sector is valued by our government, because it is something that is a big contributor to our economic engine in the province, and certainly the Southwest here. For instance, 42,000 people are employed by the tourism sector in New Brunswick alone. That's quite significant, and you see a lot of those people getting their starts to great career paths here in St. Andrews, and a lot of them go to school at the New Brunswick Community College. And I've just dealt with a couple of people looking at starting a restaurant. I was talking to them there about 2 weeks ago, and that's their number one concern, is trying to get more and more people. And they said, thank God for the New Brunswick Community College, because there's so many people that come out of that. They've just graduated this spring, and they're being employed immediately right here in the St. Andrews and in St. Croix region.
Yeah.
So everything is kind of emboldened together in terms of the fabric of the tourism economic driving industry in our region. So it's something we should not and do not take lightly. For instance, we have to continue to forge great relationships with all of our partners, and Karen mentioned her role with her MPs across the Fundy Coast. We need to do the same thing in the States. We have a two-nation vacation which was developed between our province and the state of Maine, and we're working on renegotiating a second mandate on that. And I just met with my counterpart in Augusta 2 weeks ago. We had some great conversations, and we met up with some other stakeholders in the Bar Harbor Acadia National Park area. And I mean, Acadia National Park, for those who don't know, it's one of the only national parks in the northeast of the United States. And they get so many tourists there. They I don't want to say they lack the infrastructure, but it becomes overcrowded.
Right.
And some people that come up for the first time don't quite realize that. I spoke to so many people there about that concern. It's a good concern, but they were interested in St. Andrews by the Sea, which is only a few hours away in another country. And I argue,
if we had an airport
that's
expansion
right.
in St. Stephen.
St. Stephen, yeah.
I argue it's a more exotic venue for Americans. You can get that same taste only in more exotic climate. And that's what we offer in New Brunswick, is an opportunity for travelers who are authentic experiencers.
Yeah.
Like I said, people who are looking for the Vegas Strip or the Times Square thing, we don't necessarily have that. But we're not marketing ourselves towards those clientele. We're marketing ourselves towards the authentic experiencers, who I would suggest are coming here in droves, and I'm proud to say that they are.
Yeah.
So I guess the next step is taking the 3.3 million people that are coming to Acadia National Park and making them quite aware of just what we have to offer a few hours drive north.
Well, it's interesting that you mention Acadia, because a friend of mine from New York City is going to be coming up in August, and he said, he's dropping his son off at Acadia. I didn't even know what he meant when he said Acadia. And he said they might be going to Quebec, and they're going to pass through St. Stephen's, so hopefully we'll get together. But yeah, it's something that we again need to promote. And I like what you said. You're not drawing in the people that are looking for Vegas or New York or Los Angeles or the Caribbean. It's a different type of person, but there should be enough of them out there.
But Rob, tying it into the economic driver, I can speak personally. I wouldn't be in this community if it wasn't for tourism. I wouldn't be actively involved. My opportunity to come back to Charlotte County and to come to St. Andrews was tourist driven. And in my day job at Kingsbury Garden, it was started for 3 reasons. One, so people could enjoy Mrs. Lucinda Flamer's personal estate. The second one was to enhance St. Andrews as a tourist destination. But the third was to create employment. And there are so many people in this community that are so dependent on it, and hearing increases of dollars for the province and tourism and all the travel writers that we have. That is key to our community. So I can just, on a personal note, say that how much it was my opportunity was tourism. And if you look at everyone else's in our economy, people visiting here that are choosing to stay here, it really is the backbone of Canada's premier seaside resort town.
Right. Right, and the fourth, I guess, would be that you're up there in your office making money.
According to my son,
according to your son.
Yeah,
that's yeah. Hey, we got to get a camera up to that office because I want to know what's going on.
Please
up
do.
there.
I'd like to find some up there. Yeah.
Okay, so we got about 5 minutes left, and I have to. Karen reminds me I got to mention something that's going on this weekend. But before I do that, do you have? Ask each of you to say a few minutes, something you'd like to end up with about Canada 150, or either, because here, this is one of the rare opportunities where we've got federal, provincial, and municipal governments all together. So we'll start with you, Karen, because you're at the federal level. What would you like to say in our last remaining moments?
I think just sitting here at this panel is a good demonstration of what comes out of 3 levels of government that work well together. That's really critical as well, working with the community stakeholders and looking at the assets that we have in our community and how best to take the opportunity, one, to expand them, to look at which ones need further development, whether it's Minister's Island, maybe the possible expansion of the St. Stephen Airport, to look at that in terms of making connections for jobs in the communities, improving the quality of life for all. And I think tourism is a big part of that. It draws in the fisheries, it draws in so many different sectors that people, when they come to experience all that Atlantic Canada, and certainly St. Andrews in this case, has to offer, they will tell everyone. I think that's part of the testament to what happened with the USA Today.
Okay, thank you, Karen. And Mr. Ames, from you.
Well, I just, to go off of what Karen, MP Ludwig said, I agree. It's all about collaboration and working with these 2 fine individuals, representatives. It helps make my job and the job of everyone who lives and works and recreates in our area that much easier. I can tell you firsthand, I mean, all I have to do is pick up the phone. I was talking to Karen for probably 45 minutes yesterday morning. Brad, we speak probably 2 or 3 times a week on the phone, and it's essential to have that collaboration and that communication tie-in so that we all are in the know as best we possibly can of what's going on everywhere, because there's just so much happening and so much going on positively that it's impossible to be up in knowing exactly what's going on in that moment all the time. So it's very important to have that collaboration. I want to thank them both for everything that they do. And I just want to encourage people, as the Minister of Tourism alone, to if you haven't yet, plan a staycation in New Brunswick.
Enjoy the province.
Enjoy New Brunswick, enjoy the St. Croix area, and enjoy places that you live near, but you haven't had a chance to really get out with your family and see, because we have a lot to offer here.
And Brad, lastly?
Yeah, quickly, because I know we're running short on time, but there's not too many small towns that have a deputy mayor that has an opportunity to sit at a table with their MP and MLA and talk about the community like we have tonight with you. And it is that 3 levels of government working together that is simply, not to take your saying, but getting things done together. And I'm looking forward for Canada 150 as an opportunity to situate this community for a long time. So with the 2 of them beside me, I'm looking forward to a few more announcements throughout the year of things as a community that we can celebrate, and I can tell you that they're working hard behind the scenes to ensure that these announcements do come.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, the 3 of you. It's been a wonderful evening. I did want to reinforce once again how critical it is that the three levels, federal, provincial,
Did you talk
and
about-
municipal, get along. Karen keeps, she's very pushy person. Anyway, she keeps reminding me. Anyway, I just want to thank you for that. Krista Beardy, my good friend, who's the debris coordinator from the Huntsman Marine Science Society, wanted me to tell everybody that next Saturday, that's July the 15th, at 11 a.m., there's going to be a massive shoreline cleanup for coastal mainland and island sites within Southwest Bay of Fundy. So they're going to be meeting at the Cockney Taylor, is it Cockney Taylor?
Cockney Taylor.
Cockney?
Cockney Taylor.
Cockney Taylor Natural Preserve at the Sam Orr Pond. So it's a 3-kilometer hike. You go out there with a big garbage bag, you pick up garbage, you start cleaning up. It's important that we keep our oceans clean. Our waterways are paramount. You know, we're talking about tourism. We need to keep this stuff clean. Because she was here a few weeks ago, had buckets of garbage that she had picked up, and it was making me sick. This is not something we need to see in our water. We're so blessed, so fortunate to have this wonderful waterway system, the Passamaquoddy Bay, the Bay of Fundy. We need to keep it clean. So please go out there, support her, support the Huntsman Marine Science Center. Get in there, you know, get hands-on, start picking up some stuff, clean it up, and after that they're going to have a barbecue in Blacks Harbor. So, you know what, how can you go wrong? Thanks for watching. Thanks to my wonderful guests. You guys are the best. You're all doing a tremendous job, and we'll see everybody next week. Thank you. Good night.